We are now moving to MC 2222 Montgomery County Speed Monitoring Systems, Maryland Route 20. This bill requires the placement and use of at least one speed monitoring system between each exit ramp on the ICC. Based on the number of exit ramps eastbound and westbound, the bill would require the placement of approximately 20 speed monitoring systems. After an extensive amount of work, there were discussions with the sponsor relating to the rules that are in the Environment and Transportation Committee. For those of you who are not on the committee, we receive a lot of speed camera bills, and we have rules that have been created over the years to address this and to ensure there's uniformity and consistency on the placement of speed cameras. There's 6 standards. I'm happy to go through them if people want, but the short answer is that the bill did not comply. The sponsor was not, did not want to amend the bill. So the bill was voted unfavorable 5-1. I move the bill unfavorable, Mr. Chair.
Chair Love moves the bill unfavorable. Is there a second?
Second.
Vice Chair Acevedo seconds. Discussion on the unfavorable motion. Delegate Luedtke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to Chair Love and the members of the committee. I appreciate the hard work that went into this. Thank you also to Senator Kramer, who is a strong advocate for traffic safety on the ICC, which I appreciate. As the members know, I sent around a potential alternative to moving the bill unfavorable yesterday. That alternative is an amendment to the bill that would strike a compromise, establish the bill under the rules that the Environment and Transportation Committee has established to govern these types of programs. And the short version on that, is it okay if I describe the amendment, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, briefly, and we'll get to a more fulsome discussion shortly, maybe.
Sure. So the amendment reduces the number of cameras, deals with some issues related to the allocation of revenue from the cameras, and sends that revenue to safety improvements, traffic safety and pedestrian safety improvements. So I'm going to be voting against the unfavorable. I'll be voting no on the unfavorable. I'd ask if members of the delegation are willing to give us a shot, those of us from the District 14 and 19 delegations, give us a shot to present that amendment. Then I'd ask you to join us in voting against the unfavorable motion to give us the opportunity to introduce the amendment.
Thank you, Delegate Luedtke. Delegate Collison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank the committee for its work on this bill. I guess I too am going to be voting no because the ICC cuts through District 19, a great deal of District 19, and I have to tell you that even before I was elected, I was hearing about issues on the ICC from the communities that it cuts through, and the issues that they raised with us were only exacerbated as the road has become more and more popular, as it should be, because it is a wonderful cut through the county. So I'm not sure what the rules were that prevented this bill from being seen in a favorable way, but I appreciate the bill and believe that it needs to be, and I'm eager to hear Delegate Luedtke's amendment, but as the current recommendation of the committee is, I will be voting no.
Thank you, Delegate Collison. Delegate Moon.
Thank you, colleagues. Just by way of context for my unfavorable in subcommittee on this bill, the bill came in and it basically wanted to put speed cameras along the entirety of the ICC. And we were talking about potentially doing a pilot or using some data anchors for this. But in that all or nothing approach, and I sort of mentioned at the voting session.
Delegate Moon, can you hear us? Delegate Moon?
Earlier that yeah, sorry, are you having all right, should I move?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Sorry, I was in an unstable location. So I was just saying to explain sort of the context from the work session. The bill came in as a sort of an all or nothing, photo enforcement along all of the ICC or not at all. And we were looking at the hope of a pilot or something data driven to guide forward a policy on this. But with it being an all or nothing bill, I went with a no. But I did have a chance to take a look at the proposed amendment, and I will say I am definitely open to it. As you can see from the school bus bill that we just voted on, one of the things I was trying to do there was to try and instill public confidence in photo enforcement programs by both having responsible use of the revenue and data points to actually drive the decision making. And again, the bill as introduced, I think, did not have those features, but as amended, or as proposed to be amended, I think might. So, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure what procedurally is the correct order of operations, since we have a motion on the table. But I'll just flag it that I was one of the no's, but I'm interested in the amendment.
Yep. So we'll deal with this motion, and then we'll, depending on how it goes, move on to the amendment. Delegate Shi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious. I agree in principle we need to do something. And I just wonder what either the State Highway Administration or MC DOT propose as solutions instead of, for example, as Delegate Moon said, all or nothing, just the speed cameras, because people, a lot of people hate speed cameras. But like for my neighborhood, there is increasing speed driving, just very fast moving cars as more young people moving into their parents' basement and live together and all of that. We have seen a lot of unruly behaviors. So I'm getting what's called a dynamic speed display sign on Trevella Road instead of speed camera. So people see in real time what they are actually, the speed at which they're driving, and that can deter some behavior instead of getting a ticket. I'm just wondering if those professionals have proposed some alternatives, and I'll be open-minded in terms of listening to the amendments. Thank you.
Yeah, so just for context, it's the Maryland Transportation Authority that actually controls the ICC. It's not Montgomery County DOT or State Highway. Delegate Love, Chair Love, did you get any input from MDTA during the bill process?
I personally did not know, but I will say to Delegate Shi, it's interesting that you mentioned the real-time posting, because that is actually one of the standards that we have in environment and transportation. When you are putting in speed cameras, you must have one of those ahead of time. But no, I did not hear directly from them.
Great. Delegate Barbe.
Yeah, I always have to re-educate myself every year as to what our procedures are. I mean, I do like Delegate Luedtke's amendment, but I'm going to support the subcommittee and vote for the unfavorable amendment. If that fails, then I'll support Delegate Luedtke's amendment. But I apologize for having forgotten what our procedures are after these many years.
No problem. I'm not trying to short circuit the discussion, which is why I haven't sort of explained what I think we're going to do here, but I'll just go ahead and do that now to avoid further confusion. I think we're going to reject, I'll ask people if they're willing to do this by voice vote, the unfavorable. I think at least many members of the committee, including the chair, are understanding of that. And then we'll get to the discussion of the amendment, assuming that occurs. So I think people can feel very comfortable without worrying about what we call on the floor the second reader rule or anything like that in this particular unusual context. And I will just say, that is partly because, the bill sponsor was not interested in the discussions we're having right now, but Delegate Luedtke stepped in and was interested, and he is a co-sponsor of the bill. So with that, let me recognize Delegate Resnick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually have a couple questions about the bill or about the concept of the bill itself, not the amendment. Because obviously the ICC is mostly in Montgomery County, but it does take some piece of Prince George's County as well at the very end. And so because it is a bi-county bill, and because it is not only a state road, but it is a state managed road, it's controlled by not MDOT, MDOT, but not the Highway Administration, but the Highway Authority. I'm wondering whether or not, because of its unique management, we even have authority to be able to legislate. And because it is a bi-county road, shouldn't this have been a bi-county bill with having Prince George's weigh in as well? So those are my two questions about, I'm open to an amendment, I'm open to the discussion, but I think those are a couple of threshold issues that I need to be educated on.
Love, I don't know if you have a response to that or possibly our council.
I would ask council or possibly the chair of ENT if they want to answer that.
I think Delegate Resnick has a really good point. I didn't even consider that. I drive the road twice a week at least. I think he's absolutely correct.
Council, do you want to address that?
As drafted currently, it requires there to be a memorandum of understanding between Montgomery County and MDTA for the implementation of cameras just in Montgomery County. And so that's where that goes. And so it's also very limited in scope. It is limited to Montgomery County. So it's requiring interaction with the overall state agency and also limited to Montgomery County.
So just for my clarity, council, the ICC has exits and off-ramps and on-ramps in Prince George's County, but the bill has introduced the cameras would not have been applied at those off-ramps and on-ramps.
No, it's by agreement specifically with the county and for the county.
But also as a follow-up on that second piece that you mentioned, whatever we do has to have a memorandum of understanding with MDTA, right? We can't just legislate it. We can really just authorize and then have the county work it out. Okay. All right.
You good, Delegate Resnick? Okay.
Yes, I'm good. And I think that's part of, I think Delegate Luedtke's amendment alludes to that as well. So I think it makes it much more feasible because frankly, the current bill as stands, I just don't know if it's legal, whether or not we want to do it.
You should have seen the first draft. Vice Chair Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure who can answer this question, but someone correct me if I'm wrong. The ICC is the vast majority of the road is in Montgomery County, and there's just a small portion of it that's in Prince George's County. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. May I, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
That it's correct that very small portion of it is in Prince George's County, but it's a really important small portion because if you want to go to Baltimore or Prince George's County or Annapolis, you have to go through that portion. So yeah, it's only one small little portion, but it's super important.
Vice Chair Carr, you good? Okay, so just a reminder, the motion before us, which I'm hoping to do by voice vote to keep this conversation going, is to vote no, is on the unfavorable. If you want to end the debate, vote yes. If you want to hear more from our majority leader, vote no. All in favor of the unfavorable motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Signify by saying no.
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 We need to abstain. Great. The unfavorable motion fails. The bill is before us. Delegate Luedtke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to offer the amendment. The amendment number is 556714. Whoever wants to say amendment number one, go right ahead.
Amendment number one.
The amendment does a number of things, again, with the goal of conforming to the Environment and Transportation Committee's guidelines on these types of bills. And first of all, the idea of putting cameras through this type of MOU agreement on state roads is not a new one. There are two other highways in the state where this has been done. But the Environment and Transportation Committee has, to their credit, really thought deeply about sort of the circumstances under which they're comfortable with the cameras being placed on these types of roads. And the first, as it should be, the first of the requirements that they have is that the sponsor of the bill needs to show that there really is evidence of traffic safety issues. So I would tell you, I mean, anecdotally, as Delegate Cullison pointed out, we've been hearing from constituents for years now about these traffic safety issues, but I also looked up some numbers. So the ICC makes up about 0.3% of the lane miles of roads in Montgomery County and accounts for almost 1.5% of the fatal accidents on roads in Montgomery County. So you're talking about almost a 500% sort of and the right word is not over-attainment, but that's what we're talking about, right? And so that I believe there is strong evidence that we need traffic safety measures. The District 14 and 19 delegations have for years been working with the MDTA police to try to support them in their enforcement efforts on the ICC. One of the challenges that they have, frankly, is that some folks that are speeding to such an extent that it becomes dangerous to follow them or difficult, particularly in the case of folks who are racing motorcycles on the ICC. So I believe that there is a traffic safety issue here. Now, the remainder of the ENT committee's guidelines are embodied in the amendment. So first of all, the bill as introduced would require the placement of cameras. This amendment, as it should, authorizes. It reduces the number of cameras that would be authorized to 2 cameras. Those cameras would be placed at the locations with the highest number of traffic accidents along the route, as determined by the Maryland Transportation Authority. The ENT committee's guidelines include a provision requiring that the money has to be something more than just a general revenue stream for local government. So the amendment specifically requires that any revenue over and above the cost of operating the systems has to go to traffic safety and pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements around the on and off ramps of the ICC. And this is important for those of you who've been tracking the ICC issue for a long time, the potential for new pedestrian and bicycle facilities along the ICC. When the ICC was built, there was a promise made that there would be a bike path along the length, and portions of it have never been built out. So to the extent that there would be significant revenue, that would be an option here. And then further, it would require that around the signs there be a device that allows drivers to see their real-time speed as essentially a warning, a notification, and it establishes a 5-year sunset, effectively making this a pilot program. So I did my best in the amendment to draft it to the ENT committee specifications, and I would move the amendment.
A second on the amendment?
Second.
Great. The amendment's been moved and seconded. Delegate discussion, Delegate Barbe.
Yeah, I'm going to support the amendment and the bill, but I will just to let everybody know, I think Delegate Resnick brings up an important point, and I'm going to investigate that when it gets to my committee. So that's it. I'm going to support the amendment and the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Barbe. Delegate Shetty.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Majority Leader, for this amendment. I think it's really comprehensive and addresses a lot of really important concerns when it comes to placement of speed cameras in general, which I am all in favor of, especially when they are data-driven and placed along areas that have high accident rates. So thank you for that. My question is a slightly wonky procurement-related one. Sorry for putting you on the spot with this one, and you may or may not know, but Montgomery County has, a fairly limited number of speed cameras, and it's a contractual arrangement with their speed camera vendors, and that has actually caused in the past a lot of challenges with the placement of them because it's a sort of scarce resource. And I think they're in the process of renegotiating that contract. I have no idea where it is in the process. I haven't followed it that closely, but I just kind of have a question around, since this is a state managed road, whether the allotment of the 2 cameras would come from whatever contract the state has, or if it would come from the counties. And it's a super random, wonky question. It's okay if you don't know the answer.
Sponsor the amendment.
I believe that as the bill would be amended, it would be county cameras, but they would be run under an MOU with the MDTA. But it's a really good question. I'm going to give a call to the county's procurement officer and see if
he won't. No, don't do that. I could just ask him when he gets back from his haircut. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Delegate.
Ain't nothing but a family thing. Delegate Love, Chair Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to Delegate Luedtke for all of his work on this amendment. It is he did a lot of work and he really worked hard to follow the committee guidelines. This is, I would say, 90% of what both I and the subcommittee chair in E&T on the Motor Vehicle and Transportation Committee had tried to encourage the sponsor to do. I just wanted to let folks know that I will be voting against this. And I may change my voting committee depending on what happens, but I wanted to let you know why. And that is because when we get these bills, we want to know the hazardous condition that we are addressing when we get them. We don't have that information right now. And so if we get this information, then I will be much more comfortable with this bill. But without that information, I'm not there yet, but I do want to emphasize yet and thank Delegate Luedtke for all of his work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Love. Delegate Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I just want to, again, express my gratitude to Delegate Luedtke for the original sponsor of the bill and to the subcommittee for all the work everyone's collectively put on this. I mean, Delegate Luedtke and Delegate Collison are exactly correct that for folks whose districts touch the ICC, this is one of the top constituent concerns that we hear week after week, year after year. And the reason is because you can probably spend 5 minutes either, walking nearby or driving on the ICC before you see someone who is not just sort of barely exceeding the speed limit, but someone who is flagrantly and intentionally going upwards of 20 or even 30 miles over the speed limit. Folks have died. Folks, if we don't act, will continue to die. And I just want to make a quick point that we sometimes lost in all this discussion, which is that speed cameras work. If you Google the studies around this, there have been, for the last 10 or 15 years, a number of empirical studies done of other jurisdictions that have speed cameras, and they consistently find reductions of both crashes and injuries from around the range of 40 to 60%. So I think this is a great amendment. I think as amended, it's a great bill. I look forward to voting for both the amendment and the bill, and I look forward to this delegation and eventually the General Assembly taking a huge step forward here to save lives.
Thank you, Delegate Stewart. Delegate Frazier-Hidalgo.
This is a really complicated issue. It has a lot of requirements that we've set out that we want to meet when we put in speed cameras. Like Delegate Love said, I don't know that I am 100% there yet, but I will say that in our committee, we have fought very hard to get speed cameras for Baltimore City on I-83. We fought very hard to get speed cameras for Prince George's County on Indian Head Highway. And while I may or may not be there at the end or may not be there yet, I'm going to do what I can to fight to get something done to address the hazardous issues on the ICC. We might not have all the facts yet, but I'm going to work to try and get as many facts as I possibly can. So I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Frazier-Hidalgo. Delegate Solomon first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had two somewhat basic questions, perhaps. Delegate Luedtke, thank you for pulling this together. I'm assuming, because this authorizes it, in the conversations with MDTA, assuming this bill were to pass, are they interested? Do you have a somewhat firm commitment from them to implementing this?
I think they would be. I think the issue is the MOU and what exactly is in the MOU.
Yes.
I think it's hard to say for sure until they know exactly what the agreement would be with Montgomery County.
Okay. And then the other question, I'm assuming, does this also, we've studied more of the speed camera issues on sort of local roads. On a highway, is it the same premise? If you're 12 miles over the speed limit, it would trigger the camera? Or is there a different criteria for highways?
No, that's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you.
Delegate Barbary.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that obviously the legal counsel for my committee is going to look at this amendment and see if it, conforms. And if it doesn't, if there's a tweak that's needed, then we'll make that tweak and run it by the delegation. I do want to say, as a matter of public policy, it's not correct to compare the accident rate of a highway to all the roads in Montgomery County. A more apt comparison would be accident rates on Route 200 versus Route 50 or 270. And so I just wanted to say that, put that into the record.
Great. Thank you, Delegate Barve. I do not see anybody else's hand raised. So let me just remind my colleagues that your camera has to be on to vote. Up, Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier, I heard someone's concern that in doing this on the ICC, because it goes into Prince George's County, but I presume on the stretch of Route 355 with its many, many names, that we have at least one speed camera, and that obviously goes into another county. So clearly there are those things are already dealt with in law.
Thank you, Delegate Kaiser. I do not see any other comments. So one more reminder that in order to vote, your camera needs to be on. And we will take a roll call vote on the amendments. So we're voting on the Luedtke amendment. Council?
Delegate Sabero.
Yes.
Delegate Barve.
Yes.
Delegate Carr.
Yes.
Delegate Tarkoudian.
Yes.
Delegate Crutchfield.
Yes.
Delegate Cullison.
Yes.
Delegate Foley.
Yes.
Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Yes.
Delegate Gilchrist.
Yes.
Delegate Kaiser.
Yes.
Delegate Lopez. Pardon?
Yes.
Sorry. Delegate Love.
No.
Delegate Luedtke.
Yes.
Delegate Moon.
Yes.
Delegate Polakovich Carr.
Yes.
Delegate Chi.
Yes.
Delegate Queen.
Yes.
Delegate Resnick.
Yes.
Delegate Shetty.
Yes.
Delegate Solomon.
Yes.
Delegate Stewart.
Yes.
Delegate Wilkins.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
22 votes in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and 1 absent. Motion carries.
Thank you again, Delegate Luedtke.
I move the bill favorable as amended.
Second.
Great. The Delegate Luedtke moves the bill. Delegate Acevero seconds. Any discussion on the bill as amended? Okay. All in favor of the bill as amended, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody want to be recorded in the negative?
That would be me.
Or above?
Not yet. Not yet. Can I be recorded as almost?
Negative for now.
We should add a not yet option to the voting list.
Does anybody need to abstain? Okay. Well, thank you, colleagues, for working through that. I thought that was a really good discussion and a positive outcome.